Hey guys, Ryan here. Tonight we trudge across a horizon painted in ochre and dust, where tumbleweeds roll like forgotten secrets under a frying pan sun. You probably won't survive this without a few hard knocks. Before we settle in, if this resonates with you, hit like and subscribe only if you're here for more of this vibe. Drop your location and local time in the comments so we can all compare frontier watches. Gently lower the lights, switch on that soothing fan breeze, and come with me as we unwind into tonight's adventure. You stand on the edge of a vast plain, shimmering heat waves dancing off cracked earth. The year is pinched somewhere between 1860 and 1890, when the American frontier stretched from the Mississippi to the Pacific, and one official count claimed over 400,000 settlers stamped their dusty boots onto new homesteads, an era defined by Manifest Destiny and the Homestead Act of 1862. You feel the grit in your teeth as you swallow the reality that, out here, water runs scarcer than empathy in a saloon brawl. Your first breath of wild air brings the scent of sagebrush and leftover smoke from a cattle drive passing days ago. That smell might make you nostalgic until you realize rancid bacon grease once served as an impromptu sunblock. Folklore says some prospectors smeared crocodile dung on their arms to ward off sunburn, a quirky remedy that probably leaves you glad you packed aloe vera. Even the birds look exhausted, turkey vultures soar in lazy spirals overhead, reminding you that scavengers thrive where pioneers wilt. As you shift your weight, you notice tiny tracks in the sand, perhaps cottontail rabbits bound past here at dawn, or rattlesnakes warming themselves on sun-baked stones. Stepping without thought is an invitation to poisonous jaws. You recall that, by 1889, the Oklahoma land rush spurred thousands to hoof it at a starting gun's crack, racing toward 160-acre plots. Scholars debate whether that shotgun signal was a blessing or the death knell for native tribes displaced by the act. It's a reminder that every homesteader's dream carries a darker echo. Pressing on, you scan the horizon for landmarks. A lonely monolith of granite stands in the distance, known locally as the Devil's Thumb, a marker so prominent early surveyors used it like a celestial guide. Locals whispered that the rock silhouette moved at dusk, but seasoned frontiersmen chalked that up to mirages under an angry sun. The wind picks up, whistling through abandoned fence posts and rattling your canteen's cap. That rattle might spook a would-be bandit hiding behind a mesquite bush, but mostly it reminds you that sound travels odd and far in this open expanse. A single voice can be deafening, and a dropped horseshoe could draw curious coyotes. As you tighten the straps on your bedroll, your mind drifts to the rifle slung at your back. By 1873, Winchester repeating rifles had become the most common long arm in cavalry units and homesteads alike. You know the rifle's comforting weight, yet some experts still dispute whether leather cartridges or paper casings offered better reliability in sweltering heat. You adjust your hat brim, keenly aware that one moment's hesitation under this blazing dome can send your temperature soaring. Already, mirages of shimmering water pools mock you. Coaches and wagons once creaked over these same trails, packing goods and hopes alike, but you realize the real voyage begins where steel wheels and wooden spokes end. Settlers once set up picket lines of buffalo skulls to discourage graver robbers, or so the tale goes, and though that skull-wall trick sounds eccentric, it likely planted more dread than any bolt-action gun. You consider whether you'd dare to assemble such a grim deterrent or rely on sharper wits. Night hasn't fallen yet, but the sun's glut in the western sky tells you date and time, late afternoon, just past 3, with shadows leaning longer than your ambition. If you push on now, you'll reach a dry creek bed by sundown, at least if the stories about shifting sandbars hold true. Your tongue grazes your parched lips. In the distance, a lone cottonwood tree stands sentinel by that creek, its branches trembling in the heat shimmer. It promises shade and, if you're lucky, a trickle of brackish water. Yet some accounts warn that cow manure seepage often spoils these so-called springs, proof that out here even hope can taste foul. You square your shoulders and step forward, settling a rhythm in your stride. Every crunch of sandstone underfoot reminds you that out here, the land doesn't negotiate, it demands. Keep moving or become part of the dust yourself. You drop onto one knee as your boots crunch into the parched creek bed, the sun beating down until every stone feels like a hot coal beneath your palms. Your canteen, half full and rattling, feels stubbornly heavy. Back in the 1870s, settlers often carried water in lead-lined skins to keep bacteria at bay, a practice that saved many from spoiled supplies, though it sometimes led to heavy metal ailments of its own. You flick open your modern filter's cap with gratitude for its simpler design. The cracked mud reveals faint dry rivulets where water once whispered through, now clogged by sand and stray cow pats. You lean in, nose nearly touching the ground, inhaling for any hint of freshness. A faint sweet tang means life, the slightest ammonia hint means you should keep moving. Rumor has it some early prospectors tested springs by inflating animal bladders like makeshift balloons and watching for leaks, an odd trick, but effective at spotting hidden fissures. Still, you know to treat every find with caution. You scoop a handful of murky water into a tin cup, add a purification tablet scavenged from an abandoned stagecoach's medical kit, and watch bubbles rise like miniature geysers. The chemical fizz reminds you of a campfire tale about that penny-cup miracle, where a prospector boiled water so long that the cup shrank, supposedly leaving gold flakes behind, an eccentric story, yet one that captures the frontier spirit of maneuvering anything into survival gear. While the crud settles, you study the creek's edge. A prairie dog pops its head from a burrow, squeaks a warning, and ducks below ground, proof that wildlife trusts this supply. You watch a thirsty jackrabbit tiptoe forward, nose twitching, before lapping at the water without hesitation. If small creatures drink without recoil, you know the risk is lower. If they bolt, you move on. When the water clears, you lift the cup and sip. The metallic tang stings, but it quenches your thirst and revitalizes your spirit. Cowboys driving cattle across the plains averaged 3 gallons of water per day each, double what you're carrying, so you appreciate every drop. You pour a second cup into your canteen, careful not to jostle sediment, then swirl and discard the first cup's last gritty spoonful. Toward the far bank, yucca plants stand guard. Their strong roots yield both starchy food and soap when crushed. Frontier women once mixed yucca root pulp with water to lather up before social gatherings. You pull a handful of roots, tucking them into your pack for later testing. If they foam, you'll have soap. If not, at least you'll have fiber for tinder. You reflect on windmills dotting distant homesteads, lifting groundwater from depths of 50 to 100 feet, powered by gusts that could snap your hat from its braid. Some pioneers favored horse-driven treadmills over windmills, valuing steady labor over capricious breezes. Whichever method, extracting deep water changed homestead life, turning bone-dry wells into oases of possibility. Returning to your filter cup, you pour the remaining muddy water through a bandana. Twigs and grit cling to the cloth, reminding you that even a simple fabric can be a frontline defense against debris. You dump the catch into a dry patch of scrub, then breathe deeply, tasting the faint scent of pine and dust in the breeze. Canteens now filled, you shoulder your pack and rise. Each step sends a small dust devil swirling around your ankles, as if the land itself celebrates your success. Behind you stands a modest cairn of stones, the universal frontier marker for water. Explorers once left these piles like breadcrumbs. Some warned that outlaws sometimes rearranged them to lure travelers astray, though the truth of that claim fades into campfire whispers. You take a last look at the streambed's curve, where cattle drovers once guided herds through knee-high water, stamping a path of hoofprints that faded with each passing season. You imagine splitting your own track alongside them, carrying a leather canteen slung across your chest and a heart heavy with both hope and caution. Before moving on, you wet the bandana and press it to your forehead. The cool cloth brings relief, and the faint lather from yucca testing, if any, gives a hint of cleanliness. In this harsh expanse, even a damp rag can feel like luxury. With water secured, you glance at the horizon's sun-scorched silhouette. Ahead lies more scrub, more sun, and more test after test of your resourcefulness. But for now, with each measured swig of purified creek water, you've bought yourself time, strength, and a quiet confidence that the desert's thirst will not have you tonight. The sun hangs above you like a relentless overseer, its merciless beams drilling into your skull through the brim of your hat. Every surface reflects its glare back at you, sands sparkle like shards of glass, rocks radiate heat long after dusk, and even distant sagebrush seems to smolder in wavering mirages. You press a damp bandana against the back of your neck, grateful for its fleeting chill before it warms to body temperature. Centuries before white settlers, plains tribes learned to navigate brutal summers by following the shade of cottonwood groves and tolerating midday labor lulls, a practice you mimic now as you pause under the scant shelter of a twisted mesquite. You slide off your pack and loosen your shirt collar, breathing in a hot gust scented with dust and resin. The mesquite shade offers relief, but its shade shifts quickly. You'll need to move soon if you want to remain cool. In your pack, you carry a stripped-down kit, zinc oxide sunscreen salvaged from a discarded army surplus, beeswax-laced balm that pioneers once used to protect exposed skin, and a hand-woven straw hat stiffened with resin to reflect rays. You coat your cheekbones in a thick white mask, feeling ridiculous but wise, remembering that 19th-century cavalry troopers smeared pipe clay across their faces before battle for sun protection. Modern science has you covered better, but the principle remains unchanged: block the sun or succumb to heat stroke. As you stand, you notice the sun's angle turning from harsh noon zenith to an angled assault. Shadows lengthen, revealing the land's hidden contours. You adjust your gait, choosing a route that keeps saddle-high rocks between you and direct sunlight. More than one explorer fell victim to sunblindness, cloudy vision, and nausea that turned a hopeful journey into a death march. You recall tales of the Stockton-Los Angeles Road, where stagecoach drivers built crude shelters every 10 miles to rest horses and passengers. These squatters' hovels were little more than lean-tos, but travelers swore by them. Later, stage lines installed wooden rainbows, arched sunshades made of fabric stretched over poles, to shade coach wheels and drivers. It's a fringe detail few guidebooks mention, yet it saved countless lives under the scorching Californian sky. Sweat beads across your forehead and trails down to your ear. You pat your brow with the bandana, then dampen it again in your canteen. The instant coolness against heated flesh feels like a blessing. In one quirky account, a homesteader dipped his hat in water every morning, leaving it hung on a cactus to freeze overnight, an impossible feat in this climate, but a colorful testament to frontier optimism. You step from one patch of shade to the next, timing your strides to the sun's crawl across the sky. Every few hundred paces, you pause to touch your skin. If it feels sticky or hot to the touch, you reapply balm and realign your hat. Even the tiniest patch of unprotected skin invites sunburn so severe that blisters could drain your strength and attract insects. Wild sunflowers stand sentinel along a dusty ridge, their bright faces turned skyward. The pioneers called them lonesome giants, and they were prized both for seeds and for casting small circles of shade beneath their broad petals. You pinch a handful of petals and rub them across your forearm, the oils offering a mild protective sheen. Their efficacy may be overstated, but the practice lives on in whispered campfire stories. By mid-afternoon, heat haze distorts the horizon into a shimmering ribbon. You remember reading that temperatures in Death Valley once soared to 134 degrees Fahrenheit, scorching the land beyond imagination, a stark contrast to the pleasant warmth advertised by some hopeful settlers. You adjust your expectations. Here, warmth comes with a lethal edge. You reach a cluster of boulders crowned by a solitary juniper tree. Beneath its gnarled branches lies a shallow cavern carved over centuries by wind and water. You duck inside, feeling immediate relief as shade swallows the glare. The air within is cooler, laced with cedar tang from the tree's resin. You take off your pack and sit on a stone, flexing stiff shoulders under the easing heat. Pulling a thin scarf from your pack, you soak it in your canteen and drape it around your neck and shoulders. The evaporative cooling is instant, water seeps from the fabric, air slides across it, and you feel a rush of comfort. Frontiers women sometimes wore soaked shawls like this, believing they could tame both heat and dust. You cross your ankles, leaning back against smooth stone, knowing this micro-oasis could be your lifeline until the sun dips further. You sip from your drinking canteen, tasting still warm water that now carries a hint of cedar. Hydration is crucial. Heat can steal fluids faster than you can gulp them down. Cattle drivers once carried salt blocks to encourage sweating and maintain electrolyte balance, a practice you replicate by carrying salty crackers alongside your water. With each bite, you ward off cramps and dizziness. As the sun creeps westward, the boulder's shade expands, carving ever larger pockets of refuge. You stand and stretch, rotating your ankles and flexing your fingers. The cavern ceiling drips with condensation, little beads that signal cooler nights ahead. In the distance, you spot the flattened outline of an old wagon rut, half buried by sand. Traces of iron tracks remind you that railroads would eventually snake through here, diminishing the frontier's harshness but also erasing much of its rugged mystery. The land hums softly with the rustle of dry grass and distant rattles, a reminder that predators also seek cool refuges. But for now, as you step back into the bright expanse, you carry the cooled essence of the cavern with you like an invisible shield, a lesson in turning the sun's enemy, shadow, into your greatest ally. You slip off the dusty trail and crouch beside a clump of sun-cracked earth, eyes scanning for the pale green fronds of wild onions. The air hums with the low drone of grasshoppers, and every twig crack beneath your finger snaps louder than a pistol shot. It's late afternoon in the 1870s, when settlers followed Lewis and Clark's journals to catalog edible plants, some 178 species recorded in their meticulous hand. You pinch a slender onion leaf, crush it between your fingers, and inhale that sharp, familiar scent. If it leaves your tongue tingling, you know you've found a reliable seasoning and a safe snack. Shadows stretch long, but you remain vigilant for movement. Sneaker snakes slither beneath tufts of grass, their patterned scales blending like ghostly quilts. You remember that rattlesnakes account for more frontier fatalities than gunslingers did, a sobering fact etched into mortality records of the era. Every step now is measured, your eyes flicking between tracks in the sand, a cloven hoof, a small paw print, the pinpoint of a triangular dog-tooth vine leaf. That last one warns of the poisonous dogbane vine, whose milky sap can blister skin on contact. You brush the vine aside with a stick, careful never to touch its stem. With edible greens stashed in your satchel, you turn to higher stakes prey, rabbits and squirrels whose hollowed burrows dot the prairie. You find a slender cedar sapling and carve 2 notches at one end, fashioning a simple bow, and use a strip of leather from your pack as a string. From a fallen branch, you whittle 3 arrows, sure and straight. This contraption wouldn't impress a trained hunter, but in 1883, inventors were patenting more advanced bow and arrow hybrids, aiming to improve accuracy when gunpowder supplies ran low. You crouch behind a low rise, heart hammering. A cottontail peeks from its warren, its nose quivering like a metronome. You draw the bow, steadying your breath, and let the arrow fly. It whistles past, clattering harmlessly into a rock. You exhale and tinker with your grip, recalling that some mountain men hollowed arrow shafts with quill feathers to adjust balance, a quirky tweak that often did more harm than good. Still, if the frontier presses you, every tinkering trick could tip the scales between feast and famine. After a few more tries, you manage a clean shot. The rabbit lies still 20 feet away. You approach carefully, mindful of scavengers waiting for any fallen meal. The leather glove you wrapped around your hand shields you from brambles, and you lift your prize before its eyes close for good. The rabbit's warm heft in your hand reminds you why pioneers learned to skin and cook on the spot. Fresh meat spoils within hours in this heat. You slip a sharpened stick through its ribs, suspend it over glowing embers you ignite with flint and steel, and rotate until the fur loosens. Flames lick at the skin, leaving a charred aroma that will mask gamey notes. While the rabbit roasts, you turn back to the greens. You rinse wild onions and miner's lettuce in creosote-free water drawn from your canteen, then toss them onto a flat rock to saute in dripping rabbit fat. The sizzling sound echoes like a distant blacksmith's hammer, and aromas drift across the plain, tempting you to overindulge. But you ration yourself. Overeating now risks cramps or sluggishness when darkness falls and nocturnal predators roam. Between bites, you examine your surroundings. Coyotes yip in the distance, their chorus warning you that scavengers patrol these parts. One fringe account claims a lone coyote once stole a skillet from a campsite, disappearing into the mirage like a bandit. You laugh quietly, shaking your head at frontier folklore, then tuck that memory away. Frontier life thrives on tall tales as much as truth. The rabbit's meat yields surprisingly tender strips, each bite tasting of smoky juniper. Protein fuels your muscles, while greens fill fiber gaps. In colder months, pioneers relied on dried jerky and pemmican, preserving meat with fat and berries, a method that kept traveling prospectors fed on winter expeditions. You consider saving some rabbit strips to dry later, imagining them swung from your saddle horn like dangly trophies. Your stomach full, you pack up. Bones and scraps go into a small leather pouch to use as fish bait at the next stream. Nothing in this land is wasted. You sweep the ashes into a corner, then brush away footprints that betray your cookfire's location. In an age when some native trackers could follow a single deer's trail for miles, erasing signs of your presence is crucial. You never know who or what follows. Before moving on, you collect sinew from the rabbit's joints, twisting it into cordage. Dried sinew offers stronger lines for future snares than any plant fiber you've tested. Fringe it may be, but some frontiersmen claimed sinew traps outlasted hemp ropes in humidity and grit. You wrap the sinew around your wrist, where it can dry and toughen with each step. Finally, you fold your bandana, dampen it lightly, and pat your face. The cooling cloth sharpens your senses as you survey the horizon for vertical shapes, abandoned fence posts that might hide quail or deer. With belly full and pack heavier, you resume your trek, navigating by sun angle and wind direction. Each step carries the echoes of settlers' struggles, the whispers of plants once catalogued by explorers, and the thrill of living off the land when supply wagons are miles away. Ahead lies a stand of mesquite and juniper where game often shelters. You tuck a handful of miner's lettuce into your belt, ready for a nibble later, and fasten your makeshift bow to your pack. Hunger is tamed for now, but the prairie's offerings never cease to test your wit and courage. You press forward into that next grove, senses alive to both the edible and the deadly hiding in plain sight. You spot a shallow wash ahead where wind has stripped away the topsoil, revealing a crescent of exposed earth perfect for squeezing out of the wind's path. As the afternoon light softens, you know you need a sturdy shelter before nightfall. Back in the 1860s, homesteaders on the Great Plains often built sod dyes, houses crafted from thick blocks of prairie turf. You gather handfuls of grass-topped sod, feeling the cool soil beneath the roots, and stack them like bricks along the wash lee side. The freshly cut edges fit snugly, creating a wall that promises insulation from both gusts and chill. Your hands itch after digging through that rough sod, but you press on, layering blocks until the wall stands waist-high and spans nearly 10 feet. You pat the sod gently, settling the dirt into place, then measure out a footprint for your sleeping space. The interior feels hollow and secure, a cocoon against whatever prowls the desert dark. Nearby, a stand of mesquite saplings provides sturdy poles. You hack them down with a well-worn hatchet, their thorny bark snapping like brittle bones. Balancing 2 saplings across your sod wall, you lash them at each end with strips of sinew, cordage you harvested after skinning that rabbit. You weave additional poles at 40-degree angles, forming a low lean-to roof. Overhead, you drape a canvas tarp scavenged from an abandoned wagon, its faded stripes offering extra waterproofing. The tarp's voice is silent, but its presence speaks volumes. Where raw sod might crumble under heavy rain, canvas holds fast. You recall that in 1874, during one brutal winter, weather records show temperatures dipping below -30 degrees Fahrenheit on the plains, freezing wells solid and cracking wooden beams. Though this rain-soaked top won't protect against blizzard, it will shield you from dew and surprise drizzles. You tuck the corners deep beneath the sod blocks, weighing them down to keep wind from snagging the edges and ripping your roof away. Inside, you smooth the ground, brushing away rocks and debris. You press down a layer of dried grass and rabbit fur, insulating your sleeping pad from the cold earth. Some travelers once packed quilts woven from buffalo hair for warmth, but buffalo grew scarce after mass hunts of the 1870s. Your rabbit fur lining feels just as toasty, though every hair sends a tingle when it brushes your neck. The sun dips behind a jagged ridge, and birdsong dims to a distant silence. You find a flat stone near your shelter's entry and extinguish embers from your cooking fire there, creating a natural hearth. From that stone, you'll stoke small flames tomorrow and cook without risking sparks igniting your canvas roof. You align the stone so that smoke drifts out to the east, keeping soot off your walls and avoiding a smoky suffocation. A fringe tale drifts to mind. Early settlers sometimes slept in overturned iron wagon wheels, wedged against cliff faces to block wind. Sparks from their cooking fires would red-hot the metal, creating a makeshift sauna that baked away chills, an extreme hack that few tried twice. You consider the notion with amusement but decide your sodden canvas lean-to will suffice. To reinforce your hideaway, you drive sharpened stakes into the ground around the perimeter and stretch a thin rope between them. When night creatures wander close, they'll brush against the rope and rattle the stakes, raising a percussion alarm. Coyotes and bobcats often prowl for rodents, but the sound might buy you precious seconds to ready your rifle or bolt. As the last light seeps away, you gather brush and lay it atop the lean-to frame, filling gaps between poles with twigs and leaves. This thatching helps divert rain and muffles the shape of your shelter, making it less obvious to prying eyes. A neighboring prospector once insisted that coating thatch with mud would harden the roof into an earthen shield, but the extra weight toppled his frame under a sudden gale. You skip the mud layer, trusting lighter thatch to dry quickly after any nighttime moisture. You arrange your rifle inside the new shelter, muzzle pointed toward open ground. Winchester's Model 1873 was famed as the gun that won the West, and its repeating action gives you confidence. Yet you leave it unloaded until bedtime. Loaded rifles in cramped quarters often misfire when jarred. Instead, you keep shells in a leather pouch by your side, within easy reach should danger stir. Your final task is bedding. You lay out a wool blanket salvaged from a passing army supply train, its coarse fibers soft against your skin. Over it, you spread your sleeping roll, unrolling it into a tidy rectangle. A small pouch of dried lavender, meant to deter fleas, rests at your pillow end, releasing a faint floral note that will mingle with the desert's evening chill. 5 years ago, a merchant in Dodge City claimed lavender sachets halted rattlesnake bites by confusing their scent receptors. The story sold out his stock within hours, though no medical journal backs the claim. Still, tonight your nose prefers dreamy blossoms over sagebrush musk. You place a decoy fire pit a short distance from the shelter's entrance, piling stones and charred logs to simulate a busy campsite. Bandits in smoky gulches might steer toward that fake glow and leave your hidden lean-to in peace. You run a final scan of your surroundings, the ridge casting long shadows, the mesquite saplings whispering in twilight, the weight of sod walls pressing you inward in a comforting embrace. Your breathing slows. Every crackle of twig or distant owl call seems amplified in solitude, yet you feel centered, knowing you crafted this refuge from raw earth and necessity. As night's cool veil descends, you slip under the blanket. The lavender sachet scent drifts across your cheek, and the lantern's flame flickers low. Each breath brings relief. You're sheltered, stocked, and vigilant. Outside, the desert exhales, shifting from blistering sage to hush. You slip off the trail and crouch behind a battered cottonwood stump, heart thudding like an old steam engine. The dusklight stretches shadows into grotesque shapes, perfect for hiding a would-be outlaw. After the Civil War ended in 1865, the West saw a surge of ex-soldiers turned gunfighters. By 1870, the notorious James Gang was terrorizing stagecoaches across Kansas and Missouri. You know that lawmen were thin on the ground here, so your survival depends on staying one step ahead of cutthroats and claim jumpers. First, you set a simple tripwire across the trail where hoofprints fade into brush. You tie a thin strand of sinew, harvested from last night's rabbit carcass, to a rusty tin can you found near an abandoned homestead. When a rider or footman stumbles over it, the can clatters like a firing starter pistol, buying you moments to decide whether to make a stand or vanish into the scrub. A fringe tale says one prospector used rattlesnake rattles for his own tripwire alarm, convincing bandits that a pit viper guarded his camp. It's hard to know if the snakes ever existed or if the story was intended to scare off more than insects. You extract your Colt single-action army revolver, introduced in 1873 and quickly nicknamed the Peacemaker, and check its 6 chambers. Metallic cylinders click home with a reassuring firmness. You know the .45 caliber rounds deliver stopping power feared even by seasoned outlaws. Yet you opt to carry only a half load of bullets in each chamber, leaving alternating slots empty. This was a trick used by some cavalrymen to reduce the risk of accidental discharge in crowded holsters, an odd balance of readiness and restraint that still sparks debate among gun enthusiasts today. Ordering yourself to remain calm, you map the terrain with practiced ease. A dry creek bed runs 5 paces to your left, its lip offering a shallow trench ideal for cover. You position yourself so the creek's lip masks your silhouette, and you crouch low, feet anchored in sandy soil that muffles movement. In the dimming light, you rub a speck of black soot from your cooking fire onto your face, blending your features into shadow. Scouts in the 1860s often blackened their faces for downrange reconnaissance, using smudges to break up facial outlines, a practice seldom mentioned in polished memoirs, yet critical for survival. Above you, the skeletal branches of mesquite trees scratch against a violet sky. You survey the nearby scrub, thorns, prickly pear, and gnarled roots that could snag loose clothing or snag a boot in a chase. You tuck your pant leg into your boot, securing it with a strip of leather to avoid getting caught. Bandits might know these trails better than you do, but if your ankles don't betray you, you at least stand a fighting chance. A sudden rustle to your right freezes you mid-breath. Your finger tightens on the trigger guard, ready for anything. The source proves to be a startled prairie fox, its amber eyes shining like orbs of curiosity before it bounds away. Still, each rustle primes your senses. In this lawless expanse, even the wind can spell danger. Word travels fast among outlaw circles. Some claim that a single gunshot heard at midnight could rally local posses within hours. Others insist lawmen preferred night raids over daylight pursuits. You remind yourself that trust is a currency as rare as silver nuggets in these parts. You decide to stick to the shadows and let potential attackers wonder whether they're rounding a campfire or a derelict lean-to. Next, you set a second layer of defense. Gathering thin, flexible branches from a nearby scrub bush, you weave them into a crude barrier fence, anchoring ends into the ground. This makeshift barricade can slow a galloping horse by snapping at the legs or tangling the stirrups, enough to turn a swift pursuit into an awkward scramble. Frontiersmen sometimes used broken wagon spokes for the task, but with wagons scarce these days, you settle for sapling slats. Their crosslash is rough, but it'll do. You consider using poison bait, a cruel but effective measure whispered among mercenaries. Tales speak of coating venison scraps with plant toxins to incapacitate thieves overnight. You decide against it. 1. You'd risk collateral damage from scavengers. 2. Your moral code won't allow it. Instead, you opt for a non-lethal deterrent, tobacco mixed with gravel. When scattered around your camp's perimeter, the gravel produces sharp crackles underfoot, and the tobacco's pungent aroma drives off both foes and vermin. Seated behind your protective traps, you check your pocket watch, an unreliable gift from a traveling salesman, but it still ticks. It reads just past 8, meaning deep night approaches. Outlaw gangs often preferred pre-dawn raids when sleepy heads were slow to react, so you brace for a long vigil. Yet, you also know that daylight brings more eyes and a chance to hail passing travelers for help. A delicate balance exists between hunkering down and signaling for aid. Behind you, the empty wagon frame you passed earlier provides an excellent decoy. You set a lantern in its bed and draw your blankets in view, making it appear occupied. You sharpen a stake atop the wagon side to imply a guard's bayonet, an unsettling detail that might force thieves to risk looking elsewhere. One eccentric miner from Wyoming once wired a fake telegraph key to his frame, crashing signals that mimicked urgent messages, a trick no outlaw wanted to investigate in the dead of night. A distant howl drifts across the plain, mingling with the whisper of dry grass. You exhale slowly, letting adrenaline drain from your limbs. This watchful readiness is taxing, but you thrive on the tension. It keeps the mind sharp and senses honed. Drawing a deep breath, you whisper a promise to yourself, no slip-ups tonight. You shift position, leaning on the creek's lip, and peer out. The lantern's glow bounces on corrugated tin from your lean-to's roof, visible if anyone looks your way. You pray your decoy and tripwires work in tandem, delaying intruders long enough for you to choose fight or flight. Each moment stretching past the next cements your confidence. Time yawns across the plain until the first stars prick the sky. You slip a fresh percussion cap onto your revolver's nipple and test its hammer until it cocks crisply. Your muscles relax, but your mind remains alert. You study the dim shapes of distant hills, willing them to reveal any shifting silhouette of approaching boots or hoofs. No footsteps come. The soft hoot of an owl replaces the howls and creaks. The traps have yet to snap, the decoy remains unbreached, and the wind carries only the rustle of grass. You smile quietly. Tonight, you'll rest a bit easier, protected by gangly fences, noisy gravel, and the slow drip of your remaining water. You lean back, letting the creek's cool soil seep through your pants, and close your eyes for a moment. The night stillness is almost unnerving, yet you welcome it. Out here, vigilance is the price of life, but preparedness is the key to peace. With every measure in place, you reclaim a slice of safety in the untamed West. A final fringe tidbit flits through your mind. Some seekers of fortune hung horse skulls on their shelter's walls, believing it warded off evil spirits and highwaymen alike. You decide to skip that superstition. Tonight, rifles, sinew alarms, and strategic shadows will serve you better. You fiddle with the tripwires not one last time, ensuring its taut whisper will carry. Satisfied, you lean your head back against a smooth stone at the creek's edge. The night sky glitters above, and you feel a rare calm. Outlaws may lurk, but you've turned the land itself into an ally. In this silent standoff, the frontier agrees to hold its breath, and so do you, waiting for dawn's first light. You pause on a slight rise as dusk's glow fades, scanning the horizon for familiar shapes. Above, the first stars prick the velvet sky. Venus winks low to the west, though you know it's not a star at all but the planet once called Morning Star by native astronomers. In the frontier's heyday, Travelers used Venus to orient themselves before sunrise, trusting its steady gleam more than shaky pocket compasses. You tilt your gaze toward Orion's belt, 3 bright points in a perfect line, a celestial arrow pointing southwest, your path toward the next water hole. Below those constellations, the land offers its own signposts. To your right, an erratic boulder stands alone on flat ground, left by ancient glacier long before Manifest Destiny's first wagons rolled west. Pioneers dubbed it the Sentinel and carved notches into its side to record wagon wheel widths over the years. You press your palm against the cool stone, feeling centuries of acronymed initials, J plus M 1872, etch into its surface. That rock's permanence reassures you, some things here change so slowly they outlast hope itself. Your compass needle quivers, distracted by buried iron deposits, another reminder that instruments can mislead. So you rely on landmarks. Beyond the Sentinel, a line of low hills arcs like a sleeping giant spine. Surveyors in the 1850s used those ridges to triangulate distances between forts, marking them on crude maps that later guided Pony Express riders. You trace the ridge silhouette, memorizing its dips and rises like a bedtime story, imprinting it on your mind for the miles ahead. As you walk, you keep your eye on the North Star, Polaris, hovering near the celestial pole. Its steadfast presence ensures you're not weaving in circles, a common mistake that doomed more than one hapless drifter. In fact, records show that some wagon trains circled for days in featureless terrain, their oxen dying of thirst while drivers retraced their own tracks. You tap the compass's glass once, then pocket it with newfound respect for the heavens above. On the ground, subtle cues abound. The grass bends gently eastward, pushed by prevailing winds that have shaped these plains for centuries. You can feel the direction in the breeze against your face. Spring afternoons bring westerlies, while summer breezes shift with approaching thunderstorms. You breathe in the air, noting a faint petrichor that hints at distant rain clouds gathering over the western hills. Should you seek shelter soon, or trust your lean-to to withstand a passing shower? A swath of wild sunflowers glows dimly in the twilight, their heads still turned toward the last rays of sun. Pioneers called them landmark hearts, planting them along trails so travelers could restock seeds and bulbs. You kneel and harvest a few seeds, tucking them into your pocket for a late-night nibble and a reminder that even small gestures can anchor you in the vastness. As darkness deepens, you unpack a simple astrolabe, a brass ring etched with degree markings, a relic you found in an old prospector's chest. By letting a weighted cord hang and measuring it swing against degree marks, you can estimate latitude to within several miles. It's not precise enough to locate a specific creek, but it confirms you're still on the right north-south axis. Holding the astrolabe steady, you let the plumb bob swing, then align it with Polaris's elevation. You breathe out at the reading, 40 degrees north, matching your map's midpoint between Fort Laramie and the Platte River crossing. Below the sky, stone cairns mark the old Oregon Trail, a series of small piles left by previous travelers. Some cairns are official survey markers, while others are whispered to be native waypoints, guiding seasonal bison migrations. You step carefully around them, adding a flat river stone of your own to pay tribute. Camp tradition holds that each traveler should add to a cairn but never dismantle one, proof that even in an untamed land, respect for maps older than any one of us endures. Your footfalls echo softly against sandstone outcrops. You remember reading that the Santa Fe Trail's traders used iron horseshoes nailed face out on trees to mark spur routes to hidden springs. You search each knotty trunk for flattened horseshoe imprints, hoping for a clandestine shortcut. Instead, you find a rusty nail driven into a cartonwood trunk, likely a surveyor's blip marking a section line. You press your thumb over it to leave a fingerprint, subtly reminding future wanderers that you passed this way. The air grows colder as night deepens. You drape your scarf tighter around your shoulders, aware that clear skies bring chill. But the stars remain your constant companions. You track the Big Dipper's arc, drawing an imaginary line from the two pointer stars at its bowl's rim to find Paul Aries. It's a mental exercise you repeat until the image feels tattooed on your brain, an inbuilt GPS that won't fail when technology falters. Occasionally, you check the sunken ruts of old wagon wheels, carved depressions in the soil slick with dried clay. Deep ruts signal damp conditions once froze solid, making crossings treacherous for livestock. You note where ruts widen, evidence of wagons pulling off trail to avoid muddy ground. That knowledge guides you around soft patches that could bog down your boots or worse, your horse if you had one. Even saddle-soled boots can get stuck in gooey muck, better to skirt the edges. Every so often, you pause to mark your progress. A flint knot on a tree, a notch scratched into the bark, these breadcrumbs help you track your path back if you need to backtrack. It's a simple ritual, but it grants you a sense of control in a place ruled by randomness. You remind yourself that every notch is a promise, for every forward step, you have a path to return. A faint glow appears on the western horizon, perhaps a distant campfire or the lights of an emerging railroad town. You consider changing course toward it, but you resist. Tonight's goal is the old well at Blue Spring, not the comforts of civilization. You refocus on the star map overhead, letting the sky chart your course until the next landmark emerges in silhouette. In the hush of night, you feel both minuscule and vast, your breathing synchronizes with the slow pulse of the universe. Above, stars burn at unimaginable distances. Below, the land holds memories of every traveler who ever paused to look up. You walk on, guided by light that has never wavered and by stones that have outlasted empires. With each step, the horizon bends toward you, revealing the next ridge, the next cluster of sagebrush, the next signpost carved by nature or necessity. And though the land remains indifferent to your presence, its markers, stars, rocks, ruts, offer a faint promise that if you follow them faithfully, you will find your way home. You step off dusty trail boards into the swinging doors of a frontier town saloon, the air thick with tobacco smoke, the clink of tin cups, and the low murmur of whispered deals. In 1881, Tombstone's population surged past 10,000 thanks to silver strikes, and every saloon doubled as bank, post office, and marketplace rolled into one. You inhale the mixed scent of whiskey barrels and sawdust floors, knowing that here, the currency of choice isn't always coin, it's cattle hides, mule teams, and favors traded under vaulted ceilings. Your first task is to blend in. You ease onto a wooden stool stained darker at the center from repeated use and nod to the bartender, sometimes called a tender, since many towns lacked official bartenders early on. You lift your hat slightly, revealing dusty hair, and let a stray coin jingle in your pocket. It's a subtle signal that you've got something to offer. In 19th century boom towns, recognizing who carried real weight, whether metal or muscle, was half the battle. Show weakness, and you'll get priced out of any deal. You've heard that merchants often accepted payment in kind, sacks of corn, barrels of salted pork, or tanned buffalo hides. A merchant in Deadwood once traded whiskey for raw buffalo skulls, grinding them into bone meal to fertilize his meager crop plots. That odd practice hints at how resourceful and eccentric settlers could be. You scan the room for supply lists scrawled on chalkboards behind the bar, coffee beans from San Francisco, nails shipped from St. Louis, and tobacco leaf rolled in Ladon, Kentucky. Supplies arrive slow and sporadic. Knowing what's on hand gives you leverage. Your bartering chips include a spare revolver cylinder, 3 ounces of silver dust from last week's panning, and a satchel of miner's lettuce you foraged earlier. You catch the sheriff's eye as he settles at a corner table, ledger open, tallying fines for cow tipping and brawls. Town lawmen often earned more from saloon licenses and penalty fees than from posse duties, an arrangement some sources claim led to leniency toward rowdy patrons. Accounts differ on whether such lax enforcement fostered order or chaos, but either way, you keep your tone respectful and your asks modest. You rise and approach a weathered trader leaning against the bar. His dark eyes flick to the revolver cylinder first, then to your silver dust. Looking for nails or tools? I got a batch of pickaxes coming in, he rasps. You propose a swap, 2 ounces of silver dust for a sturdy pickaxe head. He hesitates, tapping ash from a cigar into a wooden tray, then counters, silver for 3 pickaxes. You suggest sweetening the deal with the cylinder, noting that fitting it to his old Colt would turn a relic into reliable firepower. The trader's lips curl into a grin shaped by years of haggling. He agrees. As he checks the cylinder's fit against his revolver, you recall that Colt's Manufacturing delivered its first 1,000 revolvers to the U.S. Army in 1873. And spare parts were scarce in remote outposts. That scarcity elevated any salvaged piece to a prized commodity. You cradle the pickaxe head in one hand and the revolver cylinder in the other, savoring the tactile proof of your negotiation prowess. Next, you sidle to a dark corner where a woman in a bonnet hunches over a ledger. She trades threads and buttons for bespoke trousers. Home-tailored clothes were a sign of status, and she charges premium rates. You offer 2 yards of sturdy denim from your supply, enough to stitch a pair of work pants, for 2 cooked rabbit carcasses, dry-cured and ready to eat. She looks you over, notes the scent of smoked meat beneath your jacket, and counters with 1 carcass and a length of buckskin lace. You nod in agreement, thinking leather lace could serve as strong shoelaces or lashings for traps. The trade seals with a curt nod. She slides you the lace, and you hand over the smoked rabbit. A few stools down, a saloon owner advertises fresh coffee for a quarter cup or 1 live chicken. You recall that chickens were more reliable than coffee shipments, providing eggs and meat when supply wagons ran late. You decide to part with 1 chicken you captured at dawn, but hesitating, you offer a small bag of yucca roots instead. She sniff tests the roots, then offers you a mug of steaming coffee and a bunk in the attic for the night in exchange. You accept, grateful for warmth and caffeine. Some accounts argue that barter-based lodging prevented squatters from overrunning towns, while others claim it simply fostered more transience. Either way, you tuck her chalk-marked IOU into your pocket. Overhead, the piano's keys tinkle out a jaunty tune, and a lone fiddler sets a waltz. You take a slow sip of coffee, its bittersweet notes anchoring you. The trader from earlier returns, hat in hand, to complete the pickaxe exchange. You scan the saloon for a quiet exit, noting that patrons clustered by the hearth often doubled as gossip nodes, passing info on stagecoach schedules, weather warnings, and rival gangs' movements. Eavesdropping here yields intel as powerful as a loaded rifle. Your final exchange is with the sheriff himself. You approach his ledger and slide a folded map of Hidden Springs across the table, information he might charge a hefty fee for. In return, you ask for a stamped letter of passage, promising safe transit should you need official escort to Prescott or Santa Fe. The sheriff weighs the map, his finger tracing the lines before he stamps your parchment with a crude seal and hands it back. Town seals varied widely in quality, some were elegant engravings, others crude inks, but every traveler prized a stamped letter as assurance in unsettled territories. You pause, knowing your bartering haul defines your next moves: a pickaxe head for digging, leather lace for repairs, threads for mending, coffee and shelter for comfort, and official papers for legitimacy. Each acquired item weaves into your survival kit, crafted not by supply wagons but by your wit and willingness to trade. Stepping back into the night, you sling your new pickaxe over one shoulder and clutch the leather lace in your fist. The saloon's lanterns dim behind you as you pass through the doors. Outside, the breeze carries the echo of fiddle notes and the clatter of spurs. You count your spoils beneath a star-spangled sky. The frontie's true currency is adaptability, and tonight you've banked a small fortune. Ahead, a faint lantern glow marks the path back to your lean-to. Your satchel bulges with gear born of barter. You tap the stamped letter in your pocket for luck and stride toward the next chapter, where outlaw encounters will test both your trades and your nerve. You trudge toward a narrow gulch where the bedrock glints with quartz seams, the telltale sign of gold's secret veins. It's been 75 years since the California gold rush kicked off in 1849, when over 300,000 prospectors stampeded westward, dreaming of striking it rich. You grip your pickaxe head, teeth set, heart hammering with the same fervor that drove those original 49ers to stake claims in rivers swollen with silt and promise. The air here is cooler, filtered through pines that fringe the canyon walls, but your palms sweat against metal. You kneel and run your fingers along a quartz edge, recalling a quirky technique some miner swore by, tapping the rock with a chicken feather to coax out fine dust, the feather's delicate barb supposedly attracting even microscopic gold flakes. Modern gold pans might laugh at such superstition, yet every legendary riffle count could mean the difference between dinner and starvation. You begin with the basics: crack open shale with a miner's pick, let gravity shower chips into your sluice box, a simple wooden contraption lined with riffles that trap heavier particles. As water courses over the bed, sand and pebbles scatter, but tiny gold specks settle into those pockets like hesitant school children hiding in lockers. You lean close, breath fogging the lens of your eyepiece glass, eyes straining to catch even the faintest glimmer. For every pan that yields a fleck, you scrape it into a vellum pouch and press it tight. You measure your haul with a scale salvaged from an old general store, noting that an ounce of gold once traded for nearly $20 in 1876, a rate that inspired hundreds to risk rock slides, flash floods, and claim jumpers. Today, that same ounce fetches over $2,000, but out here, it's not about modern markets, it's about survival and hope. You straighten and wipe sweat from your brow, breathing in the resin-scented breeze. Birds dart overhead, California quail, with their signature top-knots bobbing like metronomes, unaware that settlers once captioned them as mining cockatoos, convinced their frantic calls foretold gold strikes. You chuckle as you recall the legend: when quail chirped thrice in a row, prospectors rushed to pan adjacent streams, only to find nothing but fool's gold and disappointed spirits. That fool's gold, pyrite, tricks many. Its brassy luster mimics real gold until a sharp tap against a rock reveals a brittle fracture. You test each glint with a steel knife's edge. True gold leaves a soft streak, while pyrite flakes like rusted metal. Miners of the 1880s claim diamonds once used the rind of an egg to differentiate purity. If the egg shell crackled on contact, the gold was real. Whether chicken biology lends itself to geology remains doubtful, but the anecdote survives in dusty claim office ledgers. Sweat drips into your collar as you navigate a narrow ledge. Below, the gulch descends into shadows where early prospectors carved living quarters into sandstone cliffs, caverns reinforced with driftwood and canvas. Records show nearly 50 cliffside camps tucked into this canyon by 1872, a testament to human tenacity when hope outweighed fear. You imagine those ramshackle homes quaking as flash floods roared through, swallowing tools, tents, and sometimes men who failed to heed the warning thunder overhead. You pause to refill your canteen from a trickle upstream. The water tastes faintly mineral, with a metallic tang that warns of dissolved ores. You swallow, welcoming the chill that each gulp brings, and settle back to your pan. Fingers numb from cold, you swirl, tilt, and lift, watching sediment cascade off as minute flickers of gold wink back like distant lighthouses. Your mining ears pick up the distant echo of pickaxes, another party working deeper in the ravine. Competition here is fierce, claim disputes routinely escalated to fist fights or gunfire, earning the canyon the nickname Broken Pipe Gulch. You shelter under an overhang, pausing to listen for voices or hoofbeats in the dry creek bed. Bandits often lurked near rich seams, waiting to mug lone diggers at dawn. Yet you see no sign of movement, only the sun's dying light filtering through pine needles. You return to your pan with renewed focus. Each smooth rotation aligns water flow, exposing heavy particles with ruthless efficiency. You pick out a tiny nugget, half the size of a peppercorn, and cradle it. It feels impossibly dense between thumb and forefinger. For a moment, you consider pocketing it and slipping away to civilization, selling your find in Sacramento's bullion exchange. But you're not here for easy wealth, you're here to master the land's punishing whims, whether prosperity follows or eludes you. A cool breeze stirs the canyon, carrying scents of pine and damp earth. You lean back, watching the daylight recede into twilight, the glint of gold replaced by stars peeking overhead. Prospectors of old swore by night panning beneath lantern light, but you wait for dawn's full clarity before your next shift. For now, you gather your gear, sluice box dismantled, pan cleaned, pickaxe cleaned of grit. You stuff quartz shards and rinse out pans, tipping debris into a shallow pit away from your camp. Each shard could abrade your boots or pierce a canteen, so you collect them meticulously. Settlers once ground quartz waste into gravel for roads. You consider dumping it at your lean-to entrance to roughen the approach and slow any unwanted visitors. Stashing your leather pouch of gold in your pack, you shoulder it with care. Hunger pangs remind you of rabbit stew, and you tuck a few miner's lettuce leaves at the pouch's edge as a small keepsake of how far you've come. In the distance, pine owls begin their hollow calls, and you head back to camp, each step echoing on the canyon walls like a promise. Gold's glitter may dazzle, but respect for the gulch's hidden perils, flash floods, claim thieves, and collapsing tunnels, keeps you alive. You emerge from the gulch as dusk deepens into a velvety indigo. The first crescent moon hung low like a timid lantern in the sky. The desert air cools rapidly, and every ridge and crevice gathers shadows that could hide a bobcat or a bandit. In frontier lore, Nocturnal predators were blamed for more losses than daylight ambushes. Between 1860 and 1880, bison hunters reported losing nearly 15% of their night watches to wolf packs drawn by the glow of campfires. You tighten your coat collar against the chill and step toward your lantern held high to fend off both wildlife and superstition. Above you, stars swivel into view, the Pleiades cluster glimmers like a handful of diamond dust, and the Milky Way's pale smudge runs east to west. Pioneers used those stars to guard against getting lost at night, trusting constellations more than creaky compasses that could fail when cold numbed their bearings. You let your lantern's light dance across the cacti and yucca, revealing the silhouette of spiny arms reaching skyward. Their shadows flicker like ancient sentinels, a quirky reminder that even plants here play tricks on your mind. A sudden rustle to your left makes you freeze. Your lantern's beam falls on a pair of glowing eyes, desert foxes, their coats blending seamlessly with the sagebrush. You exhale, relief and awe mingling like smoke and scent. Foxes weren't just curious at campsites. Some frontiersmen claimed they guided lost travelers to water, though biologists today debate whether that behavior was instinct or myth. Whether guided or guided by fate, you watch them slip into the night with an almost reverent hush. As you near your shelter, you recall that campfires once served not only for warmth but also as social hearths where travelers swapped stories of phantom riders and ghost towns swallowed by sandstorms. One strange tale speaks of a spectral stagecoach heard rolling across dunes on moonless nights, its iron wheels creaking without a horse in sight. You pause and listen for that phantom rumble, but hear only the soft hiss of wind brushing through dry grass. Your linter stands silent in the half-light, sod walls absorbing heat from the day and releasing only a faint warmth now. You duck inside, setting your lantern on the flat hearthstone you placed at the entrance. The glow reveals the thatch lining the roof, and you run your hand along its underside, marveling at how brush and twigs, woven tight, can repel dew like a raincoat. It's a fringe construction detail you learned from a grizzled woodcutter who swore that soaking branches in creek water before weaving made them expand and seal gaps overnight. Inside, you place your rifle against the south wall, barrel lowered to prevent accidental discharge. Winchester Model 1873's weight feels reassuring, a tangible promise of defense should dangers press in. You slip shells into your belt pouch and hook it near your blanket. Outside, distant howls drift over scrub and stone, each one a cautious reminder that you share this land with predators whose senses are keener than yours. You stir the embers in the decoy fire pit, coaxing a faint glow that will distract any prowling thieves. Its faux warmth radiates useless heat, yet its purpose is deadly serious. Every passerby drawn there is one step farther from your true shelter. Some claim that crooked sheriffs once staged raids on decoy fires to extort recovery fees, though records from the era are sketchy. You lean your ear to the thin wall and smile at the thought of your trick working both sides of the law. A soft scratching at the linter's back wall makes you turn. It's a lone woodrat, seeking scraps of dried meat or stray crumbs. You crack the lantern's shutter to shine bright. Rats detest sudden light, and it scurries away with tiny squeaks. Frontier women sometimes employed smoke bombs of sage and cedar to clear rodent infestations, believing the scented haze kept vermin from burrows. You tuck that tip into your memory bank for later experiments. The wind picks up outside, rattling your canvas roof and stirring loose thatch. You press your palm against the entering breeze, feeling its cool breath. In some ghost stories, wind that rattles just so is said to carry spirits of lost pioneers, whispering regrets in hollow tones. You hum a soft tune to steady your nerves, reminding yourself that every eerie sound has a natural cause here: rocks shifting, branches scraping, canvas flapping. You settle onto your rabbit fur bedding, the wool blanket embracing you like a protective cocoon. Before lying down, you smear a bit of lavender sachet along your wrists, an old superstition held that floral scents warded off nighttime terrors. Though no scientist vouched for that claim, the faint aroma calms your thoughts and steadies your heart. Your lantern's flame flickers low, and you douse half its wick to extend fuel overnight. The pool of light shrinks, and darkness seeps in at the corners. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining the desert's nocturnal orchestra, crickets chirping in rhythmic pulses, owls hooting in hollow voices, and coyotes yipping in distant calls. Each note is a reminder that you aren't alone, yet you are safe within your crafted sanctuary. A chill breath courses through the lean-to, and you tug the blanket higher. The lantern guttering casts elongated shadows that stretch like fingers across the sod walls. You focus on each soft inhale and exhale, letting the rhythm lull you as stories of ghostly stagecoaches drift away. Outside, tumbleweeds might clatter against walls, and unseen creatures might pad nearer, but the traps, tripwires, and decoys you set will buy you time. The last thing you sense before sleep claims you is the gentle whisper of your own breath, in harmony with the desert's nighttime song. You smile, knowing that tonight, as every night, you've turned ghost stories into guarded rest and howls into lullabies. Your senses soften as the night deepens, each breath lengthening with the desert's slow exhale. The world outside your shelter fades into gentle shadows, and every creak of branch or sigh of wind becomes a tender reminder of Earth's quiet pulse. Let your shoulders drop, releasing the tension of day's trials into that soft darkness. Beneath your eyelids, imagine the moonlight drifting through spiny cacti, painting gentle patterns across sand that cools to velvet underfoot. Feel the rhythm of distant owls, their calls weaving through star-studded skies like whispered lullabies. You sense the land's vast embrace, cradling you in its ancient calm. Each heartbeat slows to match the hush of midnight plains. You might glimpse phantom stagecoaches in dreams, iron wheels turning on silent roads, but here, within your sod walls, they carry no threat. Let those images pass like wisps of smoke, unburdened and free. Inhale the faint lavender scent that lingers on your skin, then exhale, releasing every worry into the desert breeze. The warmth of rabbit fur bedding envelops you like a soft tide, gentle and unwavering. No rattlesnake's rattle disturbs this peace, no outlaw's stealthy steps reach this haven. Drift now into a place where cactus blossoms shimmer in dreamlight and wolf song blends into a distant echo. Feel weightless, suspended between earth and sky, as the night's lull carries you toward deeper rest. Sleep gently, companion of dunes and stars, knowing that this land, so vast and untamed, has become your sanctuary tonight.